So welcome everybody to our May 2022 meeting of the Blackstone Franklin Square Neighborhood Association. Before we get started with our agenda today, I'd just like to make a few brief announcements. One is that we are having our scholarship awards ceremony coming up Tuesday, June 7th at 6 p.m. at Estragon. Everybody is invited. You don't need to RSVP. This should be a really fun and great event. Our scholarship fund and annual award is really one of the greatest things that we do as an organization. I think last year we gave grants of between $2,500 and $3,500 each to 14 different students who either live in the South End or go to school here or have some connection with a community group here. So it's really a fantastic and fun event. Secondly, we're going to be having a tree planting ceremony pursuant to some work that Heather's going to be talking about shortly. That's going to be on Tuesday, May 24th at 3 p.m. That's also an event that everybody will be invited to be held. I don't know whether it'll be in Franklin or Blackstone Square, but one or the other, and Heather will touch on that shortly. And then the final thing I want to mention is that we have resumed our signature Tidy Up Tuesday. I think they're still on Tuesday events that we get together just informally one afternoon every month and pick up trash in Blackstone and Franklin Square. And it's actually a surprisingly fun and sometimes cathartic event. So I'd encourage anybody who wants to come. And what date is that, Jonathan? Or is it the last Tuesday of the month?
I think it's the 29th. I'm just checking. The Tuesday, the 31st. So I think it's the straight after the Memorial Day weekend in May.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. And that's going to be our practice going forward, is that it will be on the final Tuesday of each month. And we'll promote it on Facebook and announce it that way. And, it's obviously it's weather permitting. So if it's pouring rain, we won't do it. But in general, we will do it. And we supply the gloves. We have trash pickers, all that kind of stuff. So all you really need to do is just show up. And it's, a half hour or so. And it's actually kind of fun. So the first order of business tonight is to elect our officers and board for 2022, 2023. And this is something under our bylaws we need to do every year at our May meeting. And so we're going to do it now. And what we'll do is we'll have a motion on a vote to support the slate of candidates who have stepped forward to volunteer. And our tradition is every year that we just vote the board and the director and the officers in the board as a slate. Everybody who volunteers is welcome to serve. And so here are the candidates for the upcoming year. And I just ask each of you to wave and say hi as I read your name, just so people can put names to faces. Jonathan Alves, Vice President.
Hi, everybody.
Jonathan. Tony Crowdhall, Director.
Hello.
Tony. Heather Govern, Director.
Hi there.
Matt Muse, our treasurer. I know Matt's here, but
I'm here. I'm on two at a time. Hi.
Hey, Matt. David Stone, that's me, president, and Ashley Watson, secretary.
Hello.
Hey, and I just want to say that Ashley is a new addition this year, and she came forward a few months ago, I think, to say she wanted to be more involved, and she has already been a huge asset. So we are so excited to have Ashley joining us on the board for the coming year. So let me set up a poll, and we'll just ask you, this is a motion to approve the proposed officers and directors for 2022-23, as I just read them. So if people who are eligible and desirous to vote can vote yay or nay. Right now. Can everybody see the poll? No?
Not yet, David.
Okay, I guess I didn't hit launch.
I see it now.
Cool. Anyone else want to vote?
I can't see the poll, but it might be because I'm using a hotspot. So
Okay.
it's a little slower, but I vote yes.
Okay, thank you.
Slowly.
Okay, for some reason it's not letting me vote in this poll, but I'll vote yes too. Anybody else want to vote? Okay, great. So that carries 13-0. Thank you, everybody. So with that, let me move to our first substantive element tonight, which is an update from Heather Govern, who's our Parks liaison. And Heather's going to tell us about the amazing progress that's happened over the last 2 months on the tree planting project that she has sort of single-handedly captained and brought to fruition. So go ahead, Heather.
Can
Thanks,
you,
David.
sorry, Heather, I can't share. David, can you give me screen
Yes.
share? Hold on. Heather, do you want me to start the screen share?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Anyone
set.
who was on the last call might have heard me talk about the project to plant 6 trees, 3 trees in Blackstone Square, 3 trees in Franklin Square along Washington Street. Well, along Washington Street in Blackstone. We're going to show you exactly where on our map here. Tony, if you just scroll down to the second page. This is a bird's eye view of Blackstone and Franklin Squares, and our trees have been purchased. We worked with a reputable landscaping company who does a lot of tree planting across all over the Boston area, and discussed the fact that we wanted some diversity in our trees. So we've got a white oak, a black tupelo, a red maple along Washington Street, and then further closer to the benches in Franklin Square will be a white oak, a black tupelo, and a red maple. And you'll notice those black X's there are where we sadly lost 3 enormous elms to Dutch elm disease, and they had to be taken down, what, last year, right? 2 years ago now.
Be a period, yeah.
So we are both replacing those, but adding some more over to the Blackstone side, in hopes that these trees will survive and live to be as old as the ones that unfortunately were taken down. How old are those trees, Tony? Over
170 years, 170-year-old trees, and a lot of them
170-year-old trees.
are 170 years, the ones that you see in Franklin.
Yeah. So of course our trees will not be as large and won't have the width of those and the height, but we're gonna get them there. We've got a watering plan, so it's really important to water for the first 2 to 3 years, and then you can usually leave them alone and they will thrive. So that's the hope here. We are planting them next Monday and Tuesday. So I'm going to, and we'll put out some information about it, but I think we're going to have at 3 p.m. on Tuesday is when we'll gather at probably on the Blackstone side, I think. And maybe some of the city officials will come who helped put this project into action. And you'll get to see the trees actually go into the ground. During the entire day, they're going to be digging. So that's not really the exciting part, but we think that the trees will be in on both sides, and basically the 6th tree will go in. That's my hope, around 3 p.m. on Tuesday. So that's the plan, and just wanted to see if anyone had any questions.
How big will the trees be?
They're probably about 10 to 12 feet high, maybe even 14. I think it's on the top. If you go up, Tony, I think I might have put it up at the top here. Oh, 15 to 18 feet. I was wrong.
Oh. So they're pretty good size.
Yeah, yeah. One other point I wanted to make, moving off of the tree planting, is that there is still the possibility that when the fountains are fixed, we will have a hose bib that helps with watering these trees and watering the rest of the square. That's been a portion or a part of the project that we tried to push forward along with the tree planting. So the tree planting was approved first, and then we're still working on getting the plumbing, all the plumbing issues dealt with these fountains and with a potential hose bib for watering purposes. The other update is that we tried to work with the city on locating a compost, public composting in the corner of Blackstone, or I would say outside of the actual square, right on the sidewalk, over on the Shawmut side. And we couldn't get that pushed through. So right now, the closest location for one of those city composting bins, which are beautiful, by the way, they are painted. I wish I had my picture up. If someone's got the picture, throw it up there. But it's over at the South End Library. So right to the left side of the doors to the South End Library is community composting, which is amazing. I've seen people using it. I've used it. You just bring your bag over there, drop stuff in. There's directions as to the exact types of compostable food scraps that can be put in there. The big no-no is putting any meat in. So don't put any meat in there, but your vegetables, fruits, coffee grinds, all of that can go in there. So please use it, because the more you use it, the more composting bins that are painted beautifully will see pop up around the South End.
Cool. Heather, do we know anything more about the situation with regard to getting the fountains back on?
I sent another email today.
Okay, thank you.
So
Blackstone fountain is working today.
oh, good. Was it really high, the water?
No,
Okay.
but maybe a foot.
Ooh, okay. I mean, I know that they've had somebody in there messing with it, but I don't know what the status is of actually getting it fixed to completion, unfortunately.
We'll keep on that. Heather, there's a question in the chat about with regard to tree selection and why not consider or why not plant an elm that's resistant to Dutch elm disease.
So we actually talked with the landscaper about that, and I was told that there are some variations of elms that can be resistant, but also you're in good shape planting these trees. I think the idea was, and this is across the city right now, where there are parks that have almost all the same, the same tree that was planted, and you'll notice this once you go around the common and you start looking at the trees. There'll just be like 6 trees in a row of the exact same tree. The direction that used to be what the tree planters pushed for, but now it's all about variation and diversity. So we wanted to put some, for these 6, we're just putting in a few to test out how they do. I think if we felt that they didn't do well, we'd go back to some other species of trees, different types of trees, but we'll see how this goes, and then we'll potentially be looking at some other options.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. That makes sense. It's interesting to note that part of the reason, if I recall correctly, that the Dutch elm disease spread as far as it did in Franklin Square among the elms there is that many of them are actually interlocked at the roots, which I guess has come about precisely because, sort of a monoculture of elms planted at one point.
Right.
So they were able to spread the disease from one to another because they were so tightly spaced.
And unfortunately, that means that more elms will come down in Franklin. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but that's likely going to have to happen in the coming years.
Yeah, great. Anything else?
That was it for me.
Any other questions for Heather? I just want to say, Heather, thank you from all of us for pushing that, this whole thing forward as you did, and Matt gave you an assist too, I know, but it wouldn't have happened really without your efforts. So it's greatly appreciated.
You
I
guys.
second that. And Heather, are you going to be there at 3 o'clock on Tuesday?
Yes,
So-
I will be
okay.
there.
Okay,
All right. That sounds great. Thank you.
thank you. Next, we have John Santiago, our state representative, and I think I saw John joined us. Are you here, John?
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Perfect, awesome.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome.
It's good to see folks. Do I just start, or
just give us a.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it's
You
good
look
to see
very far
everyone
away. Look very far away, John,
from the computer screen.
from the
or like-
camera.
They haven't deployed you again, have they,
No,
overseas?
well, the camera is one of these ones that come with the computer, so I can't.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of stuck. It's either this or this.
Okay. We
So-
prefer the tiny John. Okay.
It's good to see you folks. It's been a while. I look forward to catching up with you in person. Corey's on the call as well, as I know many of
Hey,
you
Corey.
have gotten to know Corey over the years.
So good
And
to
so-
see you.
Yeah, we just want to touch base with you all, provide some updates in the community, but some of the work that we're doing on Beacon Hill on behalf of the city, the neighborhood, the greater Commonwealth, and but we're excited to be there again. As some of you know, we're on the second year of our term here. They're 2-year terms. So the last day of session is July 31st. But I have to say that obviously COVID has really been offered the background for so much the past 2 or 3 years. And we're still in this COVID kind of pandemic, obviously, but things have picked up legislatively for sure. And so I was hoping to run through a couple of things. As some of you may know, I am the vice chair of the COVID committee. So I've been quite active on that, not just with respect to what's happening across the Commonwealth and some of the policy decisions, but also what's happening internally. As you know, the State House, or as maybe you don't know, but the State House is now open for business. So you can come visit the office, visit me, plan a meeting. Things are starting to pick up a little bit. You know, obviously some folks are not exactly sure if they want to come back in person or not, given the fact that we are in the midst of, some would argue, a new wave with the Omicron subvariant, but happy to welcome folks. And I mean, obviously we don't have to meet in the building, but happy to meet folks in Blackstone, go for a walk around, whatever you guys want to do. I'm in the neighborhood quite often. So just want to touch base on some big policy issues, discussions and bills that have passed in the legislature that I think are important. And to me, that I'm pretty proud of the work that we've been doing as a Commonwealth. You know, something that I was pretty active in is a $1.6 billion supplemental bill, just to give you a sense of where we're at financially, fiscally across the Commonwealth. We are in quite an incredible time to be in state government. Not only are we running a significant, good, every month looks like the revenue's coming in hot, but there's also a significant push from the feds as well. And so we're living in a period right now, despite the pandemic, where a number of initiatives, policies are moving forward because the money's there. I'll give you one example. You know, the feds passed an infrastructure bill. It's about $9 to $10 billion that we're going to see hit the state. And as a matter of fact, the next couple of weeks, you'll see an important bill go through to plan for infrastructure projects throughout the Commonwealth, hopefully some here in the South End. But I bring this up because a couple of months ago, we passed a $1.6 billion bill that I was active on that was really focused on COVID. During the Omicron surge, I had brought the Speaker of the House and some other high-ranking officials to BMC in the midst of the virus, just to give them a better sense of what's happening on the front lines. We were able to pass, like I said, $1.6 billion in COVID relief, much of it focused on masking, vaccinations, and reach out to some of the most vulnerable communities, something I care very much about, not just as a physician, but also as a legislator as well. Some other important pieces of legislation that we've passed. We passed a pretty important one 2-3 weeks ago. We are finally a state. It has to be signed by the governor, but we have the veto votes to override any veto that will give driver's license to anyone, obviously that qualifies for it, irrespective of their documentation status. This has long time been a rights issue for not just economic rights, but civil rights for folks who are undocumented. Now, as soon as that bill is passed, we'll be able to give folks access to a driver's license so they can go to work, take their kid to daycare, go to the hospital. A couple months before that, we passed a pretty comprehensive voting rights bill that made it permanent to mail-in votes, that expanded early voting, and did a whole host of things to get folks more active and more engaged. These initiatives really started with COVID-19 when the landscape had changed. Some stuff was done in the midst of COVID, but nothing was done permanently. What we saw during COVID, we saw a significant increase in the number of people going to get votes, and we just codified some of this. And so these are great changes that we're going to see moving forward. Obviously, as you know, maybe you don't know, but we redistricted the whole state. So my district is changing as well. So you're still in my district, fortunately, but I have left parts of the Fenway, and parts of Back Bay. I've actually moved a bit more south, and actually I have most of the south end. I mean, I have most of it, but now I have even more of it. There's just one sliver I don't. So now the south end, for all intents and purposes, as opposed to some of the city council seats, where it's divided between, I don't know how many seats, I will be having most of the south end, actually go down to Dorchester a bit. Some other important things just to take note of. We just passed the budget, which is arguably the most important bill of the year. It's about $50 billion. We were able to secure some earmarks and funding for some special South End issues, whether it's Southwest Corridor Park. We got some money for the music center. We got RISE, which I know some of you are familiar that RISE runs some of the needle pickup initiatives down there. We got them $1 million to continue some of the work that they're doing. Obviously, mass and cast remains a big issue of everyone on this phone call. I hope if it's not, it should be. The last supplemental budget, we got $6.5 million for to help some of the efforts really focused on trying to get folks decentralized. As you know, when Mayor Wu decided to address the tent issue, some of the folks on this phone call, activists, community leaders, elected officials, were pushing for decentralization. We still continue to push for decentralization. There are a couple of sites scattered throughout the city. Unfortunately, there's still a significant chunk in the South End. Rest assured with me, every conversation that I have with the city, with local elected officials, with advocates, that's stuff that I'm pushing for. But short story, we got about $6.5 million to help with some of those efforts across the city of Boston. And the talk is like, we want to help. I'm happy to help on Beacon Hill fight for resources. But I think if we get resources, let's make sure that we're all playing an equal role in addressing this issue across the city. Because, my concern is, and I think we're all concerned about this, as you walk around right now, and I just went for a jog 2 days ago, it's back, right? The concern, the people on the streets. And so many people forget that don't live around here that they think it was just a tent issue, right? But lest we forget, mass and cast was an issue long before there were tents here. Tents were moved, people were put in their own house, and it's still an issue, and it's still going to be an issue for a while. And so I'm in the process of really supporting what I call anchor institutions there. And so whether that's the school coming there, whether that's things like 17 Bradston, I think they'll be on your agenda later, bringing development, bringing folks who want to be there, because I think it's still a parcel of the city that has a lot of potential, and I think the only way that we are going to get out of mass and cast is not just with decentralization, modernization, or regionalization. It's going to be just an increase in development. So that's something that I've been particularly keen on over the past couple of months, and I've had a couple of talks with folks, and I think you'll be hearing more about that from me, at least in the coming months here. Some local community stuff. Obviously, I know the Shattuck issue is an important issue to many people on this phone call. My staff or I have attended, every meeting, and it's been tough, to be honest with you. I feel like a lot of the electeds are on the same page. I know the last recent meeting we had, we were able to get them from 10 spaces to 7 spaces. All I can say is that the fight continues. We're still in communication with them, and I hear your voices loud and clear. And we will continue to advocate for you. And as always, feel free to reach out to me, Corey, Nick. We're out and about, and we're looking forward to working and collaborating with each and every one of you. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are any questions.
Any questions for John?
I just want to say thank you so much, because those are all our issues, and you remain so steadfast on them, and we just really appreciate that you represent us so well, John. It's so nice to see Corey again. Very good to have you back. It's been a while. And where's Nick? Is he on the call, John?
Nick's he's on the call. I think Corey's taking the call.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we just really appreciate the dialogue, and we wanted to all here congratulate you on becoming a dad.
Yes. You left out the most important thing.
Happy for you. And we love your posts, and you're an important, you're a friend to us, John. So we're just really grateful for having you in our neighborhood, and it's great for the South End that you are redistricting and including more of the South
Yeah, and
End.
I think, well, thank you. Those are very kind words, Tony. And it's been an honor to represent you for the past 3.5 years. And I just submitted signatures, so hopefully, we'll get on the ballot. And there's
Yes.
rumor of a challenge. I don't know. I might have a challenger, so we'll hear more about that in the coming weeks. But from what I hear,
Let us know what you need, John.
awesome. That means a lot to me. And I think, I'm still as hungry as ever. And I think I want to see our community thrive and be resilient. And there's obviously some challenges, but there are a couple of important things that in your neck of the woods, that Blackstone area, that I want to touch base with you on. I think I have some thoughts about Albany Yards down there. That's kind of close to you guys, but I've been in conversation with some folks. Did you guys know that that's the hottest heat island in the city? The pollution there is out of control, and that so many of these buses don't even serve Boston. And so I've been talking to some folks and doing a little bit of recon. And so I'm going to be and I've had some preliminary talks with MBTA. As you know, they want to, redo some of the MBTA stations and with, electrified buses and diesel buses. And I think we should be thinking about what we want that project to look like in the area as well. I see that Dan Toward has a question about bus 43. Sounds like they're going to change some of the services there. Can we continue weekend service? Do you know why they're stopping the weekend activity? I wasn't aware of that.
They just announced the proposal for today, so it's not codified yet. But
well, that's good to know. We'll touch base on that tomorrow. 43. I think they just like to pick on us because during COVID they tried to cancel 43. And I think because we started a petition, I think many of you signed it, like 500 people. I mean, I was calling them like every day, and they didn't get rid of 43.
Yes, I thank you for that. Along with the 43.
Yeah, I take the 43 too, so I get it. Yeah, I actually wrote an op-ed in the Globe about that as well. So we'll check tomorrow, see what the deal is. But I feel like, it's a bus line, as you know, Dan. But, it doesn't come very often in the first place. But yeah, we'll check on it tomorrow and get back to you. Dan, if you just want to put your email on the chat so we can just connect with you, or you can just text it to me or signal to me. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Anyway, I'll get back to you personally.
Thanks.
Of course. Any other questions or concerns or things you want to highlight, or all the above?
I would just say, John, it's great to see you. Things have been really busy, but I echo what Tony and David and many folks said. We appreciate your continued advocacy. For anybody that hasn't had a chance to reach out to John directly, I definitely encourage it. Super responsive. You've been a really big voice for us. And I think we all know, especially as it relates to mass and cast, with the weather getting warmer, those of us who've been in the neighborhood for several years understand what challenges that can bring. And we need your continued advocacy at the state level. And it's great to see you doing that. It's great to see you fighting for it, as well as a lot of the other legislation that you've been pushing for. So it's really, really helpful. So just want to say thanks. It's good to see you, and keeping your head above water with all the new additions around.
Yeah, it's I know. Thank you, John. It's again, I think this is the work we love to do and we love to get out. I saw Bill at the South End Settlements event recently, and it's going to be a lovely summer. I think my hope is that the prevalence of COVID is this peak is going to go up and down pretty quickly. I don't know for sure. To put on my doctor's hat for a bit, but we'll be out and about this summer, and you'll see me if you haven't seen me already walking around with little Raphael out and about. But we're thrilled, and as you said, John, we got not many people know we do stuff outside Mass and Cast too. We have a sickle cell bill, we have a big pharma bill that's coming up that passed the Senate. It might pass the House, which will address some of the drug stuff. So we're kind of all over the place with in a good way, and with things. I will also mention, you all realize you're having a new senator, right? You have a new state senator, Nick Collins, will be running to represent you all the South End. And Nick and I, we have a very good relationship, and we've already been in communication. As a matter of fact, 2 days ago, we were talking about the South End, and We want to make sure that he's welcome, that he's engaged, and that he's, and Nick is a, not to stereotype him, but he's a very classic Southie political guy. He's going to show up, and he's going to be engaged, and I want to welcome him and get him as engaged as possible.
Great.
And I see that we have the cleanups here. Okay, so we'll put this.
Yep.
Hey, John, I wanted to tell you, when Heather had her second child, so Heather's on the call, she brought him to the cleanup when he was a newborn. So we want to see you. We want to see.
We have
you.
zero.
We would love
yeah.
to meet him. We would
I'll tell you
love to meet your son.
Raphael's been around for 2 months. He's already been to 4 museums. He's been at like 5 or 6 restaurants. I mean, he's been
He
staying
can
house 3
come to
times.
cleanup. He can come to
Yeah.
cleanup. Heather was a superstar. So
We will put him to work.
two
Yeah.
little infants, and she was cleaning the park. So it would
Yeah,
be
so
so good to see you.
We'll put the scholarship stuff on the calendar right now, and
Thank
then we'll try to
you,
make it
John.
clear. Well, I don't want
Yeah.
to take up too much of your time, monopolize it. Probably monopolize enough. But again, looking forward to catching up with you all in person. And again, if anyone wants to reach out, grab a coffee or chat about anything, send me an email. And Corey, if you want to put our contact information down there. Awesome. Well, David, thanks for letting me hop on the call, and we'll be in communication.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
everyone.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, John.
So our next item is the Blackstone School. And I see Bill Wolf from Friends of Blackstone School who's joining us. And is Principal Daniels here? Bill?
I haven't seen her join. I just
Okay.
sent her an email about 15 minutes ago and I haven't heard back. I know she was involved in some BPS meetings earlier today and maybe
Okay.
they just lasted too long.
Okay, well, you can take it away then and tell us about the school and some of the things that you're doing there and ways the community can be engaged in this organization in particular and supporting what you're trying to do.
Sure, thank you for having me. I think this call may be a result of a meeting I had with Heather. And it started with a meeting I think she had regarding the Croft School, a new pre-K up to kindergarten. I think they say eventually maybe 6th grade, but right now it's just a preschool. So we had a really good discussion, and I talked to her about one of the things that has been on my mind for a long time. That's getting out the message about the Blackstone. Just to give you a little background on myself. Back in the late 80s, I lived on Warren Avenue. Moved to Connecticut, came back in 2004, and now I live on Washington Street. So I'm certainly part of the community that you guys all serve. In 2005, I became a literacy coach for what then was called Generations Incorporated. It's now become Literations. And it's a literacy group that is designed to work on what is a real literacy crisis in this country. And it's not just Boston, but 65% of the kids that get to 4th grade in cities can't read at the 4th grade level. And that's a big problem for all of us. So Literations brings older adults into some of the inner city schools to work one-on-one with kids on literacy. As many of you know, the Blackstone School was one of the worst performing schools in the city. And under Obama, when they had a complete kind of revisit to the elementary school system, it became a school where they called it a turnaround school. And as a result of being called a turnaround school, they got rid of the school administration and they asked every teacher to reapply for his or her job. As a result of that, 90% of the teachers the following year were new, and we had a brand new administrative staff. And as you can expect, that's a little disruptive. We went through a few principals during the 3 years it took to turn the school around, but it did become a turnaround school. It became the innovation school. If you see the sign when you walk by on Shawmut, it says innovation school. Now that's good news from one perspective, but from the other perspective, the school lost about $280,000 in funding from the state, local government, and federal government because it did so well. At that time, some of us were concerned about that funding problem. And we formed the Friends of Blackstone School, whose primary objective was to raise funds for the school to help supplement what was lost. Things like field trips for the teachers and the kids, things like professional development for the teachers. A lot of technology and school support supplies were no longer available in the budget. And so we kind of formed this group to do that for them. Since then, the school has made dramatic changes. I've been a volunteer at that school since 2005. And for many years, it was just a little bit of chaos as we went through different administrations and turnover of teachers. But the good news now, Ms. Shama Daniels, who is not on the call right now, was hired about 3 years ago. We've had great stability since then, both with teachers and with staff. And the school has made dramatic progress. And I think we're on an upslope. I'm not sure what kind of information you all who are on this call want to have, but I think we're moving in the right direction. It's a very unusual school from the standpoint of 90% of the kids are what they call high need kids, and high needs are defined by the school system as students of low income families, students, English language learners, and students with various kinds of learning disabilities. That puts us in the top 5% of the state, not the city, of the state, in terms of high need kids. And the budget formulas for how do we fund school systems, in my opinion, and I made a couple of talks to the Boston School Committee on this a few years ago, they don't really adequately deal with that high a density of high need kids. So budget is always a problem for us. And that's why Friends of Blackstone School was formed to help supplement what the school provides, what the BPS provides. You know, we're not the only school that has such a Friends of. You may have seen the signs around about the Hurley School's fundraising event, and their demographic is very different than the Blackstone's demographic. So they're able to have events where they raise thousands and thousands of dollars. Last couple of years, we've not had in-person events because of COVID. We're planning to do one in the fall. But our ability to raise funds is not nearly as great as some of the other schools. That's why hopefully from being on this call today, when we do our fundraiser, you'll be more aware of what our school is and what our need is. The thing I would point out about our school, and it's diversity, it's focus on the whole child. We have art program, we have theater program, we've got a wellness program, we've got a lot of programs that help the child see the whole world as it exists for all of us. We have multiple disability kids, we've got kids with all kinds of learning issues that we integrate into the classroom. So it's a school with great opportunity to kind of have kids learn in the world they're going to live in. And we think that's important. And the scores are getting better, the opportunities are getting better. And we certainly need all of your help to provide funds to do the things that make a difference. I remember one of the kids came back from a visit to a farm, and they had never experienced actual seeing cows and hogs and horses in person. I mean, you think for many of us, that's just well, of course we've seen them, but many of these kids have no opportunity to do that. And without the funds from the Friends of Blackstone School, that stuff just doesn't happen. So I'll open up to any of you have any questions about what we're trying to do, what the school is like, why I'm so excited about being in the school.
You mentioned,
What is
go
your-
ahead.
Sorry, David. I thank you for that very rich information. I had no idea that you would lose funding for doing well. That's number one. Number two, what is your fundraising strategy as a Friends organization? How are you able to supplement the school? I mean, do you do like what kind of fundraisers do you have, just so that we know what to look out for and to how to advertise your events?
Sure. Well, first I'll start. We have a friendsofblackstoneschool.org website. So I would definitely suggest you go to that to get more information.
Great.
Historically, we've had an annual fundraising event. We used to have it at Stella. Stella gave us their space for free, and we would have a fundraising event there. Obviously, Stella's not around, so we're now investigating where to hold our fundraising event this fall. Other ways we do it, we have periodic, we send out emails to the people who have signed up on the site to get more information. Obviously, that's not as effective as an annual event, but it works. And we do rely on people connecting with other people. It's the whole idea of networking. I think in a typical year, we will raise $25,000 to $30,000.
That's great. But we are now an extension of your network. That's just great.
That's great. That's
wonderful
great.
information for us to take away. And please, let us know how we can help as well in terms of advertising these events. We definitely would like to partner with you more in future, Bill.
Well, what's the most effective way for us to communicate with all of you?
So probably through our website, which is blackstonefranklin.org. And we have, David, will you put the, we can also put our contact details in the chat.
Yeah, Matt just did.
Thank you, Matt. So Bill, could you also put in your website? You said friendsofblackstoneschool.org. Can you put that in the website so that everybody on this call can definitely check out and have a look around and see how they can be of assistance?
I'm not a fast typer, but I'm doing it now.
Great. So Bill, if you email us there, we'll respond and we'll copy everybody on the board, and we can sort of have a more granular discussion about all of this stuff and maybe get together in person. Because as Tony says, we would like to support you in any way that we can. Question for you, is the fundraiser, do you have a fundraiser now on the books for an event that's scheduled?
We're not yet. We have one in the planning stage for the fall. It's probably going to be in October, early October.
Okay, great. And is there anything else? So that's a financial, that's financial support, which is obviously very important, and I'm sure welcome. Is there anything else that residents can do? I suppose they get involved directly with your organization. Are there other things that people can do to support?
Well, I think first and foremost, if anybody really has an interest, we'd love to have you join our board. We don't have high monetary requirements for people. It's more people who really want to get involved and help the school. So anybody who would be interested in becoming a member of our board, you can write to me, Bill, at friendsofblackstoneschool.org. In terms of doing more for the school, that's a more difficult subject, because especially with COVID, getting people to volunteer at the school itself, you got to jump through all kinds of hoops. You have to get Corey and SORI tests, and you have all those other things. We don't have too many, I guess, events where you can just on a one-shot deal say, I want to volunteer today for something. The school, in general, the school doesn't need that. I would say the things that the school has needed volunteers for example, St. Stephen's, which I think everybody knows is in the neighborhood, has done a great job of helping staff the school library. The need for that has been diminished because finally BPS is paying for a librarian. We've never had a librarian before, except for one that the St. Stephen's donated. So every once in a while, there's a need for people to help work in the library, and that's still a possibility. And we'll see what happens in the future as we have now some more budget for that, how they're going to get people to staff the library. So that's a unknown. So I don't have any quick answers for you in terms of how any individual can kind of volunteer at the school. And the Friends of Blackstone itself, other than needing board members all the time, we don't have that many planned events where, again, as an individual, you can support us. The key will be once we once we identify what our fundraising event is in October, we'll be reaching out to you for that. In the meantime, sign up on our website, and we'll send you emails periodically where we update what's going on, what kind of events,
Okay.
or what kind of progress we've made. Periodically, we like to tell the people who don't know about us what's going on.
There's a
It's been
question.
very hard. We did school tours. I think it was the last one was 3 years ago, before COVID. And for a lot of people, you walk by the school, it looks like a fortress. People don't realize that that whole Washington Street side was once where the T was. And so it really didn't make any sense to have any windows and not openings. And on the Shawmut side, it looks like these steel barriers that prevent people from getting too close. So a lot of people don't know what goes on inside. So we're going to start doing tours again. It's kind of late in this season, but starting next year, we're going to do tours again, assuming we don't have any more Omicron related stuff. And I think I would encourage you to do that, because once you get inside, you see it's a very different look to what you see from the outside. It's really it's a great place to be, and it's very welcoming for the kids.
Yeah.
It's just not welcoming from the outside to anybody.
Yeah.
And I recently started following the Instagram account as well, Bill. They quite a, you start to get, if you're curious about the Blackstone Innovation School, you can follow the Instagram account, and they do some pretty cool things in there. And I think, Bill, it's a non-specific ask. I think what we're doing is we're building a network right here. We luckily got to know Kim, who's on the call recently, and I know she's also networked with you, Bill. So I just think our network and our connections are growing, and the more we talk to each other, the better for finding opportunities to help one another out.
Oh, you're exactly right. And
we really appreciate getting this much clarity about your role and about the school, and just continuing to being in one another's network is absolutely going to reveal those opportunities. I have no doubt.
I agree with you completely. And I think what I'm looking forward to is a time where we can go into the school without wearing masks. Now we have to wear masks when we go in the school. And have a chance to really get together, because I do think that's the best way to communicate. I'm looking forward to being able to have some of you who have interest come into the school for our tours, because again, you get a completely different perspective. You get a chance to talk to the administration. I know Shama wanted to be on this Zoom today, but she just wasn't able to. But she's been a terrific addition to the school. She's very well respected. She's got a lot of stuff done on the budget through BPS that previous administrations weren't able to do. So I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. We still need money, because the budget system is so outdated. It doesn't recognize our particular needs. And it's a difficult subject to talk about, because as all of you know, budgeting in the system like BPS is so difficult to change, and it's real old, and it doesn't recognize the density of problem that we have today. And until we do, people like Friends of Blackstone School are needed to supplement it and to keep encouraging people to feel good about the school. So again, thank you for having me here. Be happy to respond to anybody's questions. You want me to put my email in there as well?
That would be great.
Okay.
And Dorothy has a question. What parts of Boston do the students come from, Bill?
All over the city.
Wow.
Less than 10% of our kids walk.
Oh, that answers your question, Dorothy.
I don't know what it is this year. Last year, I just haven't seen the statistics. Last year, about 20 to 25% of our kids came from East Boston.
Wow.
65% of our kids are English language learners. 80-something% are low-income families.
Those are fascinating statistics. Any other questions for Bill?
I just wanted to follow up on the tour. That would be something that would be, I think, wonderful to do. And I think there'd be a lot of people who'd be interested in, certainly a number of us would be. Is that something that we could do relatively sooner that could be made to happen? Would it be convenient over the summer when things are less busy, or what's the?
Well, no,
what's your
over the
what's your thinking
summer,
there?
obviously, it's
kids won't be
kind of
around,
shut down. It's not so much being able to just walk through. I think to me, the ideal tour is when the school is in session, you have a chance to kind of walk through, see what's going on, and be able to talk to a school administration, maybe even a teacher or two. That's what we've done in the past.
Okay.
Now with COVID being what it is, they're really restricting people into the school unless you're dealing with the kids one-on-one. So there aren't groups that are really welcome into the school. So a tour.
Okay, so that's something for the future, maybe the fall, hopefully.
But we
the
are
fall.
definitely planning to do that come fall. Again,
Okay.
assuming we're all in a better position from a COVID standpoint.
Right. Okay. And Matt makes mention that, just one last thing, Matt makes mention that sometimes the teachers there will do, sometimes around Christmas, but also other times, things where they will, make up Amazon lists that people can support for things that the kids need.
We do, Friends of Blackstone School does a Christmas drive. And it is based on a list that we get from the teachers of things they want. So that's certainly another opportunity to connect with you and your constituency to help raise money. I guess another thing for anybody who's interested, Amazon also has their Amazon Smile accounts. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but if you designate the Blackstone School, you can have a percentage of what you buy go to Blackstone School. I know there are many other nonprofit organizations you might want to support, but for those who are interested in supporting Blackstone that way, you can do it through the Smile account. Get on Smile Amazon and designate Friends of Blackstone School as your charity of choice. So that's another good way to do it.
Yeah, that's a great way. Great. Okay. So
Anything else? I didn't have a chance to really look at the chat, so.
I think we've covered it all that's in the chat.
Okay, so again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the contact, and we'll definitely follow up with that. Make sure that you're aware of whatever we're doing and enlist your support. So thanks.
Well, thank you for coming, and we definitely look forward to working with you and supporting
Thank
the
you,
school.
Bo.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Before we move on to the final item, I just want to acknowledge Sophia Wang from Councillor Flynn's office, who's on tonight, and Kim Cuccioli, who is the mayor's South End liaison and representative. So thank you both for being here. Our final item tonight is that developer Josh Fetterman of City Realty will be here to tell us about a proposed project at 17 Bradston Street. So for people who don't know where that is, that's the street that's right off the intersection of Mass and Cass. It sort of runs parallel to the connector right by the House of Corrections there. And it's a pretty interesting project. So Josh, take it away. Let me give you screen sharing.
Thanks, David, and everyone for having us tonight. We're excited to share this with you. I'm joined by Don Wiest, our permitting counsel, as well as Dan Artigis, Jim Ronstock, and Jonathan Guinness from Embark Studio. They're the project architects. So we'll, in being respectful of everyone's time, we'll try to keep the presentation crisp and then take questions and comments, and then I'll share my contact information. Happy to connect with anyone that has follow-up questions. So I think Don can open it up.
Sure. Thanks, Josh. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
That's great. By the way, just before touching base on our project, I'll just second what the prior speaker said. I had the privilege of putting three of my children, my three girls, through the BPS system in Jamaica Plain, the Curly K through 8. Got very involved with that school. It really was rewarding. Fundraising came up quite a bit. The school remained 80% low-income students, but building fundraising really did help folks. The school funding formulas at BPS, as the last speaker said, are pretty impenetrable. But the one thing BPS really has going for it is the people who want to teach in the system are very motivated. They really want to affect the lives of kids in the city. So you get very good people in the BPS system. So anyone who was moved by that last presentation, I would just second that. It's really rewarding to see the community come together and support these public schools in our midst. They really are doing good work. With that, yeah, you're welcome. So with that being said, we're here tonight for the 17th Bradson Project. It is a predominantly life sciences proposal, but with a mixed use component to it. The proponent is actually a joint venture between two local development groups. These are City Realty Group and Rise Together LLC. Not only are they locally based, but both of these particular developers have a long track record of deep involvement in civic causes in Boston, which I'm sure they'll be happy to speak with you about. The main element of this proposal is life sciences. That's obviously one of the strengths of our current economy. We're looking to play to that with this proposal. It is a striking, tall building we proposed for the site. The idea is that it will be a gateway into the Newmarket area from the south end. The scale is significant. However, it's actually in context with the number of existing proposed buildings around the area. And we'll show you that. What we're hoping to do with this project is to provide a shot in the arm to the Newmarket area at a time when could probably really use it. The project we expect to be a very successful one. Folks should be aware that although life sciences is a very hot industry in Boston these days, you pay the same construction prices to build wherever you are in Boston. This is not near the Longwood Medical area. It's not in the Seaport. We're a little bit more of a pioneering project over here. So we're confident we'll be successful. We are breaking ground a bit for this particular industry coming in here. With that said, I'll pass the baton to Josh Fetterman, and he'll talk a bit about this from the developer's perspective.
Thanks. And we can, Jonathan or Jim, are you able to share the presentation?
Who needs their screen?
No, I'm disabled.
Who needs their screen sharing?
Jim Ronstock.
Jim Ronstock.
Okay, let me find you.
I'm probably on there twice because I'm calling in on two different devices.
Okay,
So,
well, I just gave it to you, screen sharing on at least one of yours.
While we pull it up, as described, we're that corner of Southampton and Bradston. Years ago, it was the Skipton Pet Center, if anyone remembers that, right on the corner, and then an office building as you head down Bradston. Bradston's a one-way that leads back to the House of Corrections, and this project's evolved since 2017. We came to the Newmarket Association and the BPDA with a slightly different proposal on a smaller site, and over the years, the site is now just over 50,000 square feet, about 1.1 acres. And when we started studying it and landed on a mixed commercial life sciences, working with Newmarket Business Association in the city, we wanted to, key into what new industrial could be in the neighborhood. There is still a lot of traditional industrial here, as you guys all know, but we wanted to bring some of the life sciences, additional office, and to try to be complementary to the Boston Medical and some of the kind of planned and upcoming development, which includes some other life sciences. So through the process, we've met quite a bit with our abutters and the Newmarket Business Association, now the BID, as well as the city, and we've been in an Article 80 process with the city. We've got a great IIG with a few members coming from the South End, I think more active in Worcester Square, but we've gotten a lot of great feedback through the 3 IIG meetings and 1 public meeting, and it's helped to sort of continue to shape the project. We're showing you a latest iteration, but some of the major feedback is shown here, just to how do we embrace Newmarket and that keys into a couple different things. How do we help protect the existing industrial, as well as, focus on job creation? We heard it loud and clear, just additional traffic measures, as well as pedestrian safety, the street experience, the public experience, and how our site addresses our neighbors, as well as one of the challenges we got from the city was they called it at-risk space, but it's evolved a bit. So they want to, in new development, see sort of preservation of traditional industrial on the first floor, or it was also defined as space that could be available for existing new market businesses that they deemed could be at risk for future displacement. And then lastly, there were some comments from the city to reduce lot coverage. There is a planning study going on, so sometimes it's hard to get, there's evolving feedback, but we're doing our best to address it. And we can go to the next slide. This just touches on the planning study. The city is going through different scenarios for future change or future planning guidance for Newmarket. So we're just following along and trying to make sure our design fits with some of the guidelines. And as I said, the public process has been really positive. It's been a great public process, great IAG process with Newmarket, Worcester Square, and we're happy to be with you today. So we can go to the next slide. It's right there on the corner, as everyone knows. As noted, we view it as a gateway. Being that it's a one-way street, we don't see it being kind of traditional industrial truck focused, and that's where we think that office and life science component would be great. And as I said, kind of be complementary to Boston Medical and some of the other buildings on the other side of Melnia. Go to the next slide. Looking at it, again, this is just sort of the height context, which we studied to try to create something that fits with what's there, as well as what we see coming down the line. Right now, if you drive by the site, there's really some challenges that we're faced with. And we've been working with Boston Public Health, BPD, Newmarket to just be a good neighbor, both for site safety, communication with police and security, and just doing our best as a property owner to, I guess you can call it, manage what's happening there. And since purchasing in 2017, we've really made it a point to be a partner and make ourselves available for Sue Sullivan and a lot of the safety focused efforts going on here. So
hey, Josh,
I can turn it over to Embark and we can run you through the plans and then look forward to getting some more feedback.
Hey, Josh, could we just go back to the previous slide for 1 second?
Sure.
I just want to ask you, so most of us know the site, but some people are on the call are relatively new to the neighborhood. So I'd just like to go to the next one, I think it is. Yeah, can you just put the cursor on where we are approximately? We're on the other side of that Boston. So there's the site.
If you go, I think Jim has the controller. Jim, if you go up north on the page, just past that cluster of yellow buildings, and then to the right, Blackstone, Franklin Square is up in this section.
Right.
So if you were to come left to Mass Ave and then cross over Melnia Cass, we are kind of the first building over on Southampton, Mass Ave in the Newmarket Industrial District.
Right. And if you go over and stand over there, you appreciate how close it actually is. We're cut off by the connector and by some fencing behind BU and stuff, but it's a very short distance. And the site itself it's currently got the Evangelical Church on it.
Yep.
And a couple of other little buildings. Is that?
Yeah, the church is on the corner, and then 17 Bradston is an office building kind of behind.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure people were oriented to what the site we're talking about. So go ahead, thanks.
And then we can kind of move quickly and then come back to it if there's discussion needed on the transportation. But we looked a lot at most of it revolved around meeting with the city and their different efforts. There's a Vision Zero effort for pedestrian safety. There's some ongoing bike efforts and planning. This is a real, I guess, challenging intersection at Mass and Cass, just from a transportation improvement. So we've just tried to be aware of the ongoing studies. We made a point to get all of our vehicular, we didn't want any vehicular access on Southampton, just it's a critical intersection. So we want to turn the corner onto Bradston and have all our vehicular traffic there. And we'll show as we go on, but you know, a big point we heard from the city was just to get our loading off street. And we did focus on building out the bike parking. And in earlier conversations, I've talked to Cross Center Garage diagonally across Mass and Cass, and they tend to have spots available. But right now, we have interior parking for 204 cars, and we'll get to the stats later, but based on the space and the location, we feel it's adequate for the building, but we can keep it moving here. You know, just as I said, it's really evolved even further than this, but from a big picture perspective and a design perspective, we had some different ideas, and we heard some feedback to really focus on how we can pay respect to some of the traditional industrial, as well as you know, traditional and more brick that we're seeing across in the South End. But at this point, I can turn it over to Jim or Jonathan to complete the presentation.
Thanks, Josh. I'll just interject a couple of quick things here before turning it over to Jonathan. This slide here really depicts what's gone on over the past couple of years. City Realty and Rise Together have been working tirelessly with the city and the various departments, including BPDA, to develop the project and the site and the overall massing of the project. As this project's going to be seen, rightly or wrongly, as a gateway into the Newmarket district, I think everyone involved wants to make this project work and be successful and be seen as a positive to the district itself. So as you can see from this slide, that just, as Josh said, it just demonstrates a couple of the iterations of the building that have gone over the past couple of years, starting from a 12, 13-story building, and now we're currently at a 9-story building that fits very efficiently on the site and utilizes a little less lot area, so it's a smaller footprint on the site itself, while also creating a difference of, as Josh mentioned, Bradston's really a one-way street. So in this type of building, there will be some truck traffic and utilities that come to the building itself. So the idea is that in working with the BPDA, that we've moved loading docks and so forth back onto the site, so they're not disrupting the roadway as much as if they were along the street itself. So it's slightly different than the traditional industrial building, but at the same time, it takes some of that traffic off the road itself. With that, quickly, I think Josh covered quite a bit already. What I want to do is turn it over to Jonathan so that he can walk through some of the design iterations and evolutions of the project, how we've been working with BPDA on the various components, including their planning office on the planned new market study that's currently underway. And at the closure, then I think Josh might want to jump back in and just talk about some of the additional benefits that we're seeing from not only the project basis, but what the project and some of its components, such as the at-risk space, could bring to this area. So with that, Jonathan.
I did it once again. I started talking without hitting mute or unmute. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for having us. This slide is really just a summary of how we have looked at the design and the drivers that we have been sort of taking from the feedback that has come from the various groups we've been meeting with, including the city and IAG, as well as some neighborhood groups. We started with the site itself, simply, extruded it, and then really thought about, beyond the setbacks where you start pushing in the building, where are the big moves really most important? Down in the left-hand corner, it's really starting to emphasize the corner of Southampton and Bradston, where it's really, as Jim described, that gateway and emphasizing the public experience. As we move further south, stepping down, to the neighborhood, where this site was never, and the sites in this immediate area were never the manufacturing building. There was a series of little buildings, and it's literally a block over. So this notion of creating a building that has some more height, but at the same time stepping it down, which acts as an opportunity to create a range of outdoor healthy spaces for the occupants and then the public as well. So next slide. We started with a site that was fairly well used, and some of the feedback we got was to have a little less coverage. You can see down in the corner, especially at the entry and around where the car wash is, as well as where we relocated the lobby, in very strategic ways pushed in the facade of the building down at the pedestrian level quite a bit. Next. In here, as you see, there are some numbers on the page, which is showing, exactly how far we're moving it. And, we've gone from touching the property line, or actually it was like 10 feet in, to 26 feet in. And again, all the way around this edge to where the building entry is, creating a much more gracious experience at the corner. As we move towards the correction facility, we placed our loading back here, our parking entry as well, but really, it really created a much more public experience at this end of the building. The other thing to note that Josh spoke of earlier was what's being called at-risk space. We've located some of it on the ground, so they have an opportunity to have some street frontage, and then quite a bit more up on the second level. And so, we're at very early design. This will get much more illustrative as the design evolves, but this gives you a sense of how far back we're pushing the facade and giving an opportunity for what is currently white in this area is really intended to have a series of trees, paving, and places for people to sit, and the possibility that there might even be inside, outside in some cafe in the space is something that's being considered as well. And here, beginning to show some of the things that we're thinking for the landscape. You can see the green planters that ring the building at the curved glass, as well as some trees. These are very diagrammatic. We're not sure exactly what the plantings are going to be, but the notion that we're embracing complete streets and the things that are really promoting a healthy pedestrian life, as well as trees and planters that will help stimulate and promote like healthy trees, as we heard earlier this evening. And so through what I just described, that blue line that goes around is basically what we're calling active facade, where there's perhaps transparency to what's happening inside. And so the idea that there's connectivity from inside to outside all the way around the building is considerably greater than it was. The real change that allows that is the red outline is showing where the loading dock was on the left-hand side on Bradston Street, to being pushed back in a driveway. So all of the loading and trash and service uses will be in a place that is back from the street and will not, one, cause any parking or traffic issues, and two, not add more sort of disruption from a sort of visual standpoint. That being said, we are in an industrial area that's surrounded by trucks. So it's kind of, gesture to the corner in particular. And I think, it's really important. What you see from the medical center across is, we have one little image that you'll see. I think the building, or we think the building really is set up to be that gateway as you enter into a new district. Next. This is just illustrated that we've worked with our traffic and parking consultant to consider a range of different trucks and make sure that they're going to work and work well. The yellow that you see on these little plans is really the extent of what we're calling at-risk space. On the lower plan is the first floor, the upper plan is the second floor. As Josh spoke of earlier, there's a huge commitment by their team to embrace this and really stimulate the community and the businesses that are currently there and give some opportunities, whether it's through training or small manufacturing or whatever has an opportunity to exist in this site. It's showing 29,250 square feet, and there's likely some additional space in garage, or sorry, yeah, in the garage, spaces that may not get used. So anyway, it's a substantial amount of space for a building this size. And this gives you a beginning of the fact that while the bulk of the building is blue, lab office, it's really the pedestrian experience that we sort of look to in terms of what gives a lot of character to this building. And you can see between at-risk, perhaps there's some amenity and even some small retail to create a very vibrant street corner and lab office environment. The one thing that I can't sort of lose track of is that this really needs to attract tenants. It's in a neighborhood that we could say is not the traditional neighborhood where life science companies want to go. And so making sure that they have some ecosystem that's going to support the type of character and workplace that they're accustomed to and looking for. And I think, we think that this really is exactly what will work both for the neighborhood as well as for the potential tenants. And so, I won't go through all the little circles. They're all just gestures towards wellness and sustainability. There is a large commitment by the city, and therefore I think by all of us now to really embrace this. And things from photovoltaics to making sure that there's green and outdoor spaces. I think we all understand what it is to be cooped up for long periods of time now, whether it's at home or at work, and making sure that there are outlets for people to get a little fresh air is a big deal and quite important. So, and quickly, thinking about how this building is going to fit into the neighborhood, there are a range of different buildings, from some older brick buildings to a lot of buildings from the 1950s and 60s that are sort of distribution centers, and think about like what kind of building is going to sort of set a good stage for the future. And with that in mind, we've looked to a range of buildings, both in Boston as well as across the globe, really buildings that speak to things that you see in the South End and throughout the Boston vicinity, things that have a lot of character, things that are, buildings and materials that patina, buildings that will not necessarily look shiny and bright forever or even on day one. And so, next. So as you see, these are a range of, we think they're very modern buildings at the same time, speaking to the type of technology, coming up with things like vaccines for COVID, and which came from Moderna, a startup out of Boston. These are the type of companies that are going to be inhabiting a building like this, and so making sure that we have a building that speaks to both perspectives. Next. And this is a really kind of a nice little diagram of the notion of this being a gateway, looking down Mass Ave towards Newmarket and beyond, and the possibility of what this really marks in terms of its transition from leaving the South End and entering the Newmarket neighborhood. And with that, we, as you saw, there were several iterations. You saw two on that page of 3 comparisons. There were quite a few, and as we thought about the next steps of the building, given the feedback we had, we started with something that really sort of reflected the shape of the site. There are actually a couple other curved buildings there, and that's really a prominent feature. The other thing is going to a building that begins to have some character, that is more dense at one end and more transparent at the other, again speaking to something that has a more open feeling at the corner and perhaps a little bit more closed as we move down. And, you know, the materials really are speaking to those of the neighborhood, both the immediate and surrounding neighborhood. Things like bronze colored metal, creating a brick in a highly performing facade, a glass that will have some subdivisions, you know, that reflect the kind of character that you might see in older mill and warehouse buildings. And then zinc, which is a very sustainable metal, but like copper, patinas from the day you put it on a building. And so with that, you can begin to see, you know, the amount of character and rich materiality that the building is sort of embracing. And hopefully with that, you know, I think hopefully everyone really sees the commitment that we're trying to make towards the neighborhood and you know, the heritage that's there. Next.
And I think, Jonathan, maybe we can, I know we have a couple more renderings, but just in the interest of time, maybe we pause for some questions and comments, and happy to continue if the group would like, but I know it's
yeah, no, I think that would be great to pause here and get some feedback or questions. Let me start. So thinking about what's the timeline that would exist for this, and where are you at in terms of the city permitting process?
So as noted, we're in the BPDA Article 80 process, and it's really been positive and in my mind successful, but we seem to, and we've already completed the state MEPA process. Bradston Street is a state road, so that's behind us. But our Article 80 process seems to kind of hit a speed bump due to the ongoing BPDA Plan New Market Planning Study. And I think, you know, I've witnessed some planning studies over the years in Boston, and they tend really to take quite a bit of time and evolve over time. And unfortunately, I think our timing may be bad in respect that we're not necessarily being moved forward, just to speak candidly.
Okay.
So,
and for people's context, what you're talking about is that the BPDA, separate and apart from anything to do with this project, is doing sort of I guess you might call it a master long-term plan for New Market, and kind of what sorts of uses should be emphasized there, and what changes, if any, should be made. That's sort of roughly what's going on, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, having had a really positive process to date, and it continues to be positive, we were hopeful to move forward to the BPDA board sometime this summer, and the plan would be for, you know, should everything move forward, to kick off construction in 2025. Just assuming we get through the city, I'd say there's a year there, and then probably about a year of construction documents and planning. So, you know, late 24, early 25, and it would be a 2-year construction process.
Okay. Did I understand correctly that you're hoping that you get your board vote this summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Anyone want to offer an opinion?
I guess from my side, I don't know what. So what is your definition of at-risk space? Is that just to support the neighborhood and welcome tenants that could invigorate the neighborhood? Is that what at-risk means, that space?
So it was loosely defined by the city when we first heard it. And they had defined a few uses around traditional industrial, prototyping, maker space, and I think that's evolved for them. But since we first heard it, we felt that workforce development was a very appropriate use to support the community. At first, we met with Harvard. They have a program called Work of the Future, and how do new jobs in urban centers what does it look like, and how do we provide jobs to all education levels, especially when you're dealing, let's say you're dealing with life sciences, and it could be a traditionally, those jobs could be traditionally for highest education levels. So we started talking to them on how do you create mixed use here. And that then spread, we ended up meeting with Mass Life Sciences Center and Ben Franklin Institute. So Ben Franklin about a year ago had 0 life sciences training in their curriculum. And we were attracted to them being a 2-year institution, high percentage of local student base. And so we've talked to them, and we've done even some test designs for a space for them to have a life sciences training center so that it could be very interactive with future tenants, whereas those tenants could assist with education. They could also be an outlet for job placement. And we took that workforce development training a little bit further and started talking to Sheriff Tompkins, and he's associated with Roxbury Community College. So we're really excited about that.
I wish it wasn't called at risk.
I agree. I think
that is the most phenomenal, like, exciting idea I've ever heard. Like, employee, like just developing the workforce of the future is not at risk. I mean, I did not understand that, and now I'm very excited.
I think the city's idea was to protect existing businesses in the district that they view could be at risk.
You spun it into something which is to develop the workforce of the future, which we know is necessary.
Yep, and even our next door neighbor is called NECAT, New England Culinary Arts and Training, and they train mostly adults in food service. And so, all right, we see workforce training as also a big part of Newmarket, and we have a retail component in the building, and I've been speaking with their director about that could be a great space for their students to run and operate a business.
Wow. Okay.
So that's how we're taking the at-risk, and it was how do we help job training. But, you know, the city doesn't always agree, but we'll see.
I think that's very forward thinking.
So Josh, let me ask a couple more questions and see if anyone else has any questions. We normally do try to adjourn not too much after 8:30, so we probably should keep this relatively short. Let me ask you 2 questions. First of all, this is next door to the existing car wash? I think I saw that on some of the plans.
Correct.
Is there a scenario where you would, I thought I saw at some point at the front of the presentation, the scenario where you might also acquire the car wash site, or is that?
So that's not an option. No, we talked to the property owner, I'd say a year or 2 years ago, and he entered into a really long-term lease with an operator of the car wash. So then part of our challenge was, in this photo, you can see the area of our building on the right. That's behind the car wash. So through our design, we stepped that portion, and we did some extensive shadow studies to just make sure we weren't hugely negative, no huge negative impacts on the car wash. And then also to open up that space should the car wash site be developed in the future, just to create some bigger setbacks and step downs. Okay,
thanks. I was just curious about that. Let me ask you another question that I think would be on the minds of a lot of people who know the area. I mean, so to be frank, there's a lot of drug use happening on that block right now, on the site. I mean, if we were to walk down there, we'd see a lot of it. And do you see, but presuming you're proposing this, so you presumably feel like the atmosphere in the immediate neighborhood there is not one that is insuperable in terms of being able to sell this to a tenant?
No, and I mean, we've already done some outreach with the brokerage community, and right now getting interest is definitely challenging, but we do see if you just zoom out, one click on Google Maps, we're right in the heart of Boston. And we're strong believers in the work that the bid is doing and will do. And then, with just a bit of, I think, redevelopment, and then the work like Rep Santiago is working on to decentralize, we do all our work in Boston. So we're confident that with some time, this area will improve. But yeah, we're definitely feeling the challenges now and
So
understand.
So you're pioneers, but you're optimistic pioneers. Do you own the site?
We do. Yeah, we bought the corner church in 2017 and 17 Bradston in 2020.
Okay. And one final thing. So I you and I have communicated prior to this meeting. I think you are hoping for our support and support of other organizations, correct?
Yep, that's
Okay.
correct. And we do appreciate any
Okay.
feedback.
Yeah,
and
we
support.
don't normally tend to take stances on projects outside our district, but we do from time to time for things that are significant, like the Hotel Alexandra. And I think this would also qualify in its own way. So I don't know so I think that what we'd like to do is, I'd just like to ask anybody who's on the call now, if they have an opinion about this one way or the other, then I'll give mine, and then we can maybe go forward. Does anybody want to offer an opinion about pro or con, or just thoughts generally about the project?
Pro.
Anybody else? So I'll just offer my thought, which is I think that this could be a really positive project and an impact for the Newmarket area, and sort of preserving a balance between the businesses that are there already, potential new industries like this one, and then also a lot of the social services uses. Like, I think this could be a very important project in that regard. And you certainly have a lot of admiration and respect from me for being willing to countenance it, given what's currently going on the ground there. And so I think what I'd like to propose is we should, as a board and as a group, we can talk about this some more, and then get back to you in terms of where we might be prepared to go in terms of support. But certainly just speaking personally, it makes a lot of sense.
Corey has a question.
Thanks, Tony. I'm just curious how the conversations with all the other elected officials have gone. Have you met with folks yet? And how is that going?
Yep, it's been generally positive, both with Rep Santiago. It's been a while. The project has spread over a number of years, but with Councillor Baker, and as I said, really positive with the Newmarket stakeholders and as well as the South End stakeholders that we've met.
Folks, I would just add one additional thought. Those who've been longtime Bostonians know that Mayor Menino was mayor for 20 years. I've slightly lost track how long Marty Walsh was in office, but maybe 7 years, something like that. We've not had a lot of mayoral transitions in this city. Once someone's elected, they tend to be around for a while. We have a new administration coming in. There's some change in personnel because of that. We also have people like Raul DeVerge, who were at a point in their career where they just wanted to leave City Hall and go do something new. So because of that, there's just a little bit less institutional continuity at City Hall around development than there really has been in years. So if you're inclined to support this project, it's actually a time where that might really make an unusually positive impact. So we would certainly appreciate any support you felt like giving us.
Great. Well, we'll be back in touch with you soon. Anyone else before we adjourn? Anna.
You're on mute. Can we unmute Anna? Ask to unmute.
Hang on just a sec.
There.
There we go. Hi. Go ahead.
Hi. We just moved to the neighborhood. This is our first meeting of this organization, and it's the first I've heard of this project. And what is it that people don't like about the project? What hurdles are you? I mean, from just general people who live in the neighborhood, neighboring businesses, et cetera. Are there negatives that people have raised for the project?
So believe it or not, so I've done this for a long time, and there's always negatives. We really have received, it's been so positive that we sometimes joke, like it's been great. We've had a lot of conversation around where some mitigation could be directed. During our IAG process, we had a whole meeting dedicated to where potential improvements could go and discuss. There's Clifford Park, which is within Newmarket. It's one of the only green spaces. There's an ongoing initiative to improve it. So we thought we kind of laid out a series of places that could use support from a project like this. And we look forward to continuing that, but it was really around safety, transportation, mitigation, and then some debate around what else could go in that at-risk in addition to the job training I described. But there was, we had a little concern early on height when we were at 13 stories. And then additionally, having that area behind the car wash used to be a full height. So there was some discussion on height, which I think we've helped to address. But I don't know. I feel crazy saying there really hasn't been any negative. I think it's the maybe uncertainty from the planners at the city level, where I think they were hopeful that the planning study would progress faster.
And just to follow up on that, I think that our counterparts at the Worcester Square Area Neighborhood Association, who are the residents who live close in the South End, who live closest to this project, are enthusiastic about this from what I've heard from them. They feel like it will make a positive change to that area, and then by extension to that portion of the South End that is nearest to Mass and Cass. So I certainly have not heard any negative sentiment from residents I've talked to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else before we adjourn? Great. So thank you, Josh, and everyone from your team for that. We'll be back to you. And then I just say before we adjourn, our next regular member and community meeting is in September. That's our normal schedule. We take summers off, but we're definitely going to do a couple more social events over the next couple months. So everybody will be invited to that. We'll put notice on the South End Facebook and other channels, so people will have word of when they are. We did a couple already this spring, and they were really, really fun, and we had great attendance. And we got some new people, some of whom are on the call now. So that's just terrific. And then we'd also, again, like to invite people to our tree planting, which is next Tuesday, to our Blackstone, to our scholarship fund award ceremony, which is on June 7th at Estragon at 6 p.m. And then also to our Tidy Up Tuesday, the next one of which will be at the last Tuesday of this month, which I think is the 31st. So with that, I'll say good night to everybody. And thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Wonderful to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Anna.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.